Hello, everyone. I'm Christina, and as usual, trying to do a live stream doesn't exactly go smoothly. Camera doesn't want to work. I have to shut down the system, and you know. Anyway, but we're here, all right, and we have quite a bit to discuss today, right? Dana Coverstone came out with another vision that he had, and it was specifically for December and January. I think it seemed like it was more for January, but I'm sure a lot of that kind of was maybe related in those 2 months, right? But I went ahead and wrote down some things, and I also found some articles that I thought were pretty interesting, because Dana is saying that we don't have much time before things really get bad, right? And Trump went on today and said that our economy is recovering faster than any other nation. So right there's some contradiction, but how many times do they say everything is going to be great and then boom, it's bad, right? Okay. Got a little friend here helping me with live streams. Yeah, Sebastian. Anyway, if you're here, hit thumbs up for me. Maybe share this discussion, and we'll just go ahead and get right into it. Okay. What we've been seeing before in the past year and a half, it started with so many crop problems that we started seeing shelves going empty for a while, right? That wasn't okay. And then we had a run on goods. Toilet paper was the most well noticed, but there were a lot of things, a lot of items that were going just bare off the shelves. It would take a while to get them back, yeast being one of them. And right now, on the shelves at my store, flour, cornmeal, and sugar are kind of sparse. It looks like the shelves are starting to thin out more. Hello, Knife Collector. Good to see you here. And gotta click out of that. Okay, sorry about that. Thank you for the thumbs up. I really appreciate that, right? Currently, we've been seeing in the news destroyed crops in silos, which I'm sure many of you are already familiar with. The winds up north. In Louisiana, I thought that there was some kind of sugar damage, but it turns out the stalks, it looks like it did all right. But there was a rice mill, like a farmer's rice mill, that had one of their silos. I read somewhere an article about a brewery. One of their grain silos had exploded, and then there's that thing in Beirut. So it just seems like a lot of silo problems right now. It's definitely suspicious. It really is. Wouldn't you say? I mean, all over the world, but you put that with the weather that we're having, the flooding in some places, the droughts in others, and Alabama had like a 3.8, was like on the border of Florida, Panhandle, Alabama, 3.8 magnitude earthquake yesterday. It was like really shallow, like less than 10 kilometers deep, right? Okay. All right. There's been shutdowns of factories because of the COVID, and there are absolutely threats to shipments right now. I also wanted to bring up other visions that people have had about coming food shortages. If you look at the ones that say famine coming, visions and dreams, you can look back 5 to 8 years, and you'll see how they were talking about how the barren shelves, when you start seeing the barren shelves, like the holes, like we did last year, that was just the beginning, right? And I even had videos that I was saying this is coming, and then it started. But if they continue to say that it just gets worse, and then eventually people go to the store and they've got this food, but then they can't pay for it, and the shipments stop. And that's what David Coverstone is starting to talk about. Okay, so first he came out with his September and November vision. September was like a third wave of COVID. November was like some kind of punch on the calendar and looked like troops, lots of rioting. He had another one about October, the second to third week of that month and the 31st, he highlighted, talked about the slow death of the dollar, prosperity preachers exposed, when things don't get better, they get worse, election clowns, and something about Passover 2021. Okay, so then we go on to the vision that Dana Coverstone put out today. All right. And it was about December and January. He's, I actually had a vision once where the calendar flipped. So when he said that to begin with, I was like, oh, wow. I can't believe that I'm not the only one. It wasn't something that happened all the time. But yes, I have seen a calendar flip to a certain day, and then I'll know something is about to happen. So this time his calendar is on December, and it pushes into January, and he starts talking about long food lines. And that was what other visionaries had said years ago, was that people, they had to wait in line for a long time. Like one bag of food could be $80, or that you'll only be able to carry what get what you can carry in your hands. And he's saying you're going to have long food lines that you stand in for hours. That just like in the news, where we're seeing that some shipments aren't coming. I've been seeing that sporadically. He's saying that shipments at the port, east and west, that there will be just nothing coming in. The ships will just be still. And that also, there was somebody else who pointed out about Babylon and how they would stand afar off, and because they can't buy and sell. I don't know if that's the same thing, but it's definitely points to it. And then he brought up the Baltic Dry Index is dead. And I didn't know what that meant, so I went ahead and looked it up. And the Baltic Dry Index, it has to do with the cost of trade of raw materials and shipping, okay? And they're saying here that ships are at port on the east and west American coast, and that the Baltic Dry Index is dead. That's not good. So if we have rioting and an earthquake, maybe economic collapse, problems around the election, and then the trade stops, there's no more shipments, what do you think is going to ensue? And so he's talking about what happens afterwards. Let's see who's here real quick before I go on. Art by Adrian. Hello, it's so good to see you here. Wonderful. Knife Collector says, I fear what will happen when Trump wins. The left is not going to be happy. Well, Knife Collector, I don't think it would be good publicly, no matter who won, to be honest. If you can imagine what would happen if Joe Biden won, I'm sure that there'd be lots of people on the other side. So either way, we're looking in our near future for more civil unrest, and we kind of knew that was coming, because right now the light and the darkness, depending on what we are, is growing. We're growing in faith, we're growing closer to God, or we're becoming darker. And I know that a lot of you have noticed that, that there's just whatever was going on, like masks are even coming off of people that were previously thought to be super nice. I mean, I don't know if y'all have noticed that, but around here we are. I have crazy old Christian redneck veteran. I have missed you. By the way, crazy Christian, you might want to try to put some more of that perfection seasoning together. Wonderful. We love you. Kids were talking about it yesterday. Okay. Moving on. Glad to see everyone here, and thank you for the likes, y'all. Okay, so the shipments have stopped, and he's saying this is definitely about December right here, when he says there are no Christmas lights, there are no Christmas decorations, no sales, no displays. And so I imagine if in October we were starting to see the death of the dollar, that by Christmas there wouldn't be anything like that to be seen. There's nothing. And instead of people shopping in the malls, Dana Coverstone is saying they're being sheltered in these malls. Okay, that's not good. It's not like they were homeless previously. He said something very scary. He said something had happened, and in one of his visions he had even mentioned the Gulf Coast. around Texas, Louisiana. Okay, but the people were sad and dazed and confused. And I imagine when you're going through, because it's not going to be just one thing, it's going to be a lot of things happening all at once, that you feel just that way, especially if you've been taught that you're going to be gone before anything bad happens, or that nothing like this could actually happen. I think that would probably add to that, right? He talked about people giving up, and I really hope you don't do that, because Bible says don't go by sight, but by faith, right? Okay. But he did say that Christians, like I said, we're getting closer to God. He was saying he saw Christians rising up and sharing the gospel of Jesus and sharing Jesus with everyone. And he said that people listened and then some people didn't. I asked God about that once, and I said, why do you send me to people that aren't going to listen? And he says, because I sent you to convict them one way or another. And that was very impactful, so like it or not, we have to go out there and tell everybody, so nobody can say they weren't warned. See what's going on. Yeah, I believe Pastor Dana too, crazy Christian. I definitely do. Oh yeah, we've been saying in the prophetic world that the storm's been coming for a while. We didn't mean hurricane. You are absolutely right. I believe him too. You can just hear the shaking in his voice. You can see the weight on his shoulders and in his eyes. It's just really hard to watch. Him go through that. But he's being very brave, and he's helping out a lot of people. He's just, we got to pray for him. Because he prays that he wants us to pray that Christians have a backbone. And I know he has it, but I think that we should pray that Dana Coverstone is given strength, inner strength and peace, about what he's doing, So he goes on and talking about the shelters. They're in malls, they're in stadiums, there's a food outreach. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And you've been hearing the news how cities are starting to stockpile food, right? Have you even noticed, like, over the last year, that places like Russia and China, and I can't remember what other country they were talking about, how their citizens needed to start stockpiling food, and that, prepare for war and doing drills. It just seems like, and then you see a news article from the UN saying to prepare for imminent worldwide famine. Okay, so it's not just coming from the prophetic community, it's coming from the news and the forecasts and the destruction that we're seeing. And you know what? Hurricane season is just getting started. Okay. Did you know in the last 30 days, y'all remember North Carolina had like a 5 point something quake? North Carolina. Yeah. Wasn't that one wild? So you can see the pressures just all underneath the United States. Okay, so we're going to go on with Dana Coverstone's. Okay, we're going to go on with his vision. Yeah, that's where he says that something had happened. The headlines, nationwide outages. Now, if you can imagine what it's going to be like in the middle of winter with no electricity, if you don't have a Mr. Buddy heater, and if you don't have backup or a fireplace or some kind of way to heat your house, what it's going to be like with power, without the power outage. You're not going to have internet. You're just not going to have that. And that could put you at a big disadvantage nowadays. But in the middle of winter, it's going to be really cold. And they're saying it should be an extreme winter. I haven't really checked into that yet, but that's what I'm hearing so far, is that we might be in for an extreme winter. And this cold spell that's coming, I usually see the jet stream going through America kind of like that, right? And it might lower or go like that. No, the cold front we're getting, it's like I saw the jet stream go like that, then down, back up like that, like almost like an upside down heartbeat. It's kind of weird. Okay, so we're looking at nationwide outages. That can be dangerous. Let's see what we're getting here in the live chat real quick. Oh, is 2 of them today? No kidding. those quakes are not that far away from a volcano. I know that they say it's dormant, but like all the volcanoes that were dormant were supposed to be kind of coming alive. But Florida does have a volcano not far from where the first quake happened. Colorado just had some snow. Wow. Okay, so Colorado's got snow, but Arizona is still hot, but blooming, from what I heard from Adrian, right? Farmer's Almanac said that probably about what the extreme winter. Yeah, right. It's time to get those seed crop seeded, for the ones that like that cold. Okay. Right now we've got 10 watching. That's awesome. And 5 likes. Don't forget to share. You feel this is a good thing? Okay. Now he said something really interesting next. Dana Coverstone did. He said that America's light is flickering. Okay. And he said it next to the power outage statement, but it just felt more ominous than that. Like our nation, the light of our nation, the heart of the soul of it, the life of it is flickering. It's flickering out. Okay. And that would make sense. We're not getting shipments, power outages, homelessness, food shortages. Yeah, I could see that happen. Economic collapse, which, and then he mentioned vultures with rotten food in their mouth. That tells me that whatever food, a lot of food that you might find will be rotten. You remember what is Queen Elizabeth let them eat cake? They were getting rotten food when that what was happening. Oregon hotter this time of year than in forever. Burnt up my zucchini. We're overdue judgment. Yeah, the thing when you're having a magnetic pole reversal, that's like the precursor of a pole shift, the crust roll. When you're in that, you can have these sporadic places like you would think that Colorado is cold, right? So Oregon should be too, right? But when the poles get all frazzled like that, the weather can just be 9 kinds of ways in these weird areas, and that's what we're seeing, Hello, Trails. Good to see you again. I'm glad you got to make it. Yes, 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 yes. Okay. All right. Okay, vultures with rotten food, And you gotta think that maybe some of the food might be rotten, but crazy Christian's right. I'm having to be careful with the sun and my plants because it's just trying to kill them, before I can really fully grow that fruit in some of these cases. So we definitely have to watch that. Just the weather itself can just take our crops, even as they're about to be finished. And I've been actually seeing a lot of that the last couple of years, like with cherry and apple blossoms, certain things. Okay, there was a spirit of depression on the people, and he saw it as an actual, figure, a spirit that, was over the people, and that they were losing hope. And, we've been having this kind of going on already, but I imagine this would be much heavier. But people are already committing suicide because they have no hope, and they should have hope. They should never give up. But this is going to be hard. I've heard a lot of comments comparing this period coming up to the Depression of 1929. I've been hearing that a lot, and it looks right too. Okay, market crash. You mentioned that. Flee in the winter. How we should flee in the winter. So that goes to saying, okay, this is going to be a really hard winter, not just because it's cold, but because of everything that's really going on. So if we can make it through winter, then we might be able to start growing food and seeding, like say in January indoors, seeding everything. And then by the time the last freeze goes out, we can start putting out those, plants, and we might be able to be okay. As long as, but I also hope you're storing up, you know what I'm saying? We've got some things here, but, remember, when the lights go out, you want to make sure that you have frozen 2-liter bottles of, because we just save our soda bottles and we put water in them and then freeze a couple in the freezer. So when the lights go out, we've got a couple of days, you know what I'm saying? Versus if we didn't have them at all. That comes in handy, believe me, but it'll help. You can't just cook everything in one day. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the lights going out, especially for people that don't have like propane or another way? And I know in the north doesn't do a lot of pit work from what I've heard, you know. Okay, so we've gone through the headlines: nationwide outages, America's light is flickering, vultures with rotten food, spirit of depression, market crash, fleeing in the winter. But he talked about a lot of people rising up and giving the gospel. And I think that was the end of this vision. There are people coming on, right, that are making these videos. They're saying, okay, I've seen what Dana Coverstone is seeing. Like, they've seen it before. And I'm really hoping that they had actually put it out there instead of waiting until Dana said something, because it really is important that when you hear a message that you give that message to edify to the church. And if you are used to this, giving those messages, and you're going to be harassed, you're going to be laughed at and, kind of chuckled off and, oh, that girl is just crazy, but that's just part of the gig. That's what happens. You convict them one way or the other, you just do it. So you can't be afraid to give out your messages, just doesn't seem right. You got to have some guts to speak up. And I know that people are going to have those guts. They're going to have the guts to speak up and we do need Jesus. We do need God. And we need to learn to forgive and to watch our tempers. Okay, so we want to just go ahead and briefly touch on what's going on in Israel real quick. So it doesn't look like the peace deals are just with the UAE. It looks like there's some other countries working in there too. Like, we're gonna have more. Is there anything that y'all feel like y'all want to bring up or talk about? Okay, because right now I want to go ahead and put your minds at a point where we think about the run-on goods that we had before when things got bad. Have you learned some of the things that you might have wanted to have a little more of, like headache medicine or vitamin C, or were there certain items that maybe you can go ahead and get now ahead of time? But I've also noticed, like, we're already having shipment problems, like with certain things, like refrigerators. They're not only in short supply, but it's hard to get those parts. And I'm hearing that about ammo and other things. So try to think about those things that you might need that you just haven't thought of, and go ahead and get there before the rush. Because I've heard somebody else's vision that they were like beating people up that were coming out of the store when all of it hit the fan, when you can't use your credit card. It tells me that there was food in there still, but you just couldn't pay for it. And I think that's when everything gets looted and there's no more shipments, the economic collapse, and that's when the food doesn't come back to the stores. Generators would be good, but the only, somebody mentioned that to me today, and I only have one thing to say about that. They are so loud and they attract a lot of attention. When the power goes out in my neighborhood, I'm the only one with battery backup. So when my lights are still on, it attracts everybody to my house. Because and I'm telling you, not one person in this neighborhood has a backup for electricity but me. So think about that when you get your generators. And plus, it requires you kind of saving up gas. You got to think, if there's no electricity, that means the gas pumps aren't working. It comes with a lot of, so maybe lanterns, Chinese fans, but it would help with the freezers. And that's another thing I worry about, is all these stacks of freezers that people have. But maybe when it's winter and it's really extreme, we can just bury it in the backyard and, it'll just stay cold, just outside, something like that, maybe a chest or whatever. And we wouldn't have to worry about a refrigerator, at least for the winter, right? Buried under some snow in a box. It's not a bad idea, right? We are overdue judgment. I think we're already seeing judgment. I really do. I think we have been. And if we have a third wave hitting in September of COVID, that makes sense because the kids just went back to school a couple weeks ago. So the signs should start showing up any week now. And that would be a big sign. And it really looks like, I mean, when you go to school, I've seen kids, they just spread lice, they spread the flu, they spread any kind of nastiness and send it to every other home. That's what happens when kids go to school. So I don't see why it would be any different. So that would be another thing that Dana was right about from the very beginning. Everybody's just, everybody that didn't elect to stay in homeschool, they're going to have that problem, which means that the COVID should spike like never before because it'll have access to every single home. I know they had a Sturgis rally. People went there and they just reported their first Sturgis death, Okay, well, I see that there aren't any really other comments. I'm going to take a look and see what's going on here. I made a video a long time ago saying that it all started around Christmas. And I had something to say about that. And I guess because it didn't happen that Christmas in these people's minds, that I guess they were kind of upset about that. But we're still looking at a Christmas issue. And it just so happened that day, December 26th of that year, the solar waves started coming in that day. The crop killers, the thing that causes magnetic issues, all that started really coming in that day, the day after Christmas of that year. And a lot of people have mentioned Christmas and visions for a while now, and the fall. So maybe this is the one. We just didn't know what fall it was going to be, but this could be the one. But I've also seen where some people are supposed to rise up out of all of this. You know what I mean? So I'm really interested to see who among the people are going to start really shining their light and show what they were born to do, God speaking through people and things. And man, I know that's coming. You can't have hardship without God's light. And that's what I'm saying is we are the ones. We are the ones the Bible was talking about all of these years. Wrote about these apocalyptic writings. They were good and bad. They were about all of us on planet Earth right now. Our ancestors knew all this stuff about us. And the people that come after us will know what we've done. They all knew. So you got to imagine that when there's a rise in evil in this world, that God is drawing close, that we're becoming more capable of spiritual gifts. And you know what? When people say, oh, I've got a power, that to me says witchcraft, because a person with an anointing would never say, I've got the power. We're humble and we're like, I've got gifts, not to abuse those gifts, right? Okay, so we're looking at immediately a third wave of COVID in September, death of the dollar in October, prosperity preachers exposed. November, we're looking at writing, possibly a quake, and election issues. December and January, long food lines, no more shipments coming, no Christmas, spirit of depression, people in shelters. So there's going to be a lot of homelessness. And pretty much it looks like the death of America looks like what it's going to happen. So that's Dana Coverstone's vision. And I can't say that a lot of people before him have been saying this is coming. So if this is the fall, if this is the year, then a lot of us have got to be strong. And if you think about it, some of you have been beaten, some of you have been homeless, some of you, we've been through stuff. So we actually have a little bit of experience. We've been through things. We can through the strength of God, we can get through this too. And at worst, we're going to see Jesus. Jesus. So if you haven't gotten your heart right, this is the time. In fact, right now is the month of atonement before the Jewish New Year. What do they call it? Rosh Hashanah. It's going to be like the year of 5781. You ever notice how many prophetic things tend to happen in September? All right, everyone. I don't see any more comments, but I do want to thank everyone that came tonight. I was really happy to see everyone. And I just I say God bless you. And don't forget to pray for Dana Coverstone, for his strength, to cover him and to give him peace in Jesus' name. Right? All right, y'all. Love you. And I will talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.